Hello, everyone. My name is Alexander Lucard, and I am an HMIS administrator for Montgomery County. In today's training, we're going to be looking at the Case Managers tab and how to fill it out correctly. The Case Managers tab is important for three reasons. The first is it lets us see what case manager is currently working with a client from your agency. The second is so that we can contact that case manager if something happens. For example, if, say, the VA is trying to get a hold of the client and can't, they can go into HMIS, take a look at the Case Managers tab, and get your contact information and contact you to get in touch with the client. And the third is to make sure that the case plan screen functions properly. And we're going to be looking at all these things today. It should be a pretty quick training, but it's a very important one because a lot of people do forget to fill out the Case Managers tab or make a couple of mistakes on it. So today, let's get to work and let's do the Case Managers tab. First things first, let's go to Client Point. And we're going to do a family today. And we're going to do the Jetsons because that's our primary test family. And remember, you only have to enter a few letters into the first and last name category if you are looking up by name. So let's just do the last name and see who comes up. Let's do J.E. And here we can see we've got Astro, Elroy, George, Jane, and Judy. We're going to know with George because if you've been in previous trainings, you remember that George is the head of the household for this family. So we're just going to go with him. Remember, we can either click on his name or the pencil, and that's going to take us into his account. We don't have to do any backdating here because we're just setting up the Case Managers tab, so we can exit out of this. And now let's just go to the Case Managers tab. That's today's focus. Everything else is done. Their entry exit is done. The household is set up. So we're just going to set them up as the case managers today. So here we go. Here's the Case Manager screen. All there is an Add Case Manager button because it hasn't been filled out. Pretty simple. Let's click on the Add Case Manager button. And here we can see is the Case Manager pop-up. First thing we want to do is set ourselves up as a case manager for the entire family. Because we're in George's account, there's only a check mark by his name. What this means is that if the system will fill out this entire form for every member of the family who has a check mark by their name. So that way you only have to fill it out once instead of, say, 5 times since there's 5 members in this family. So if we click Astro and Elroy, there's a check mark by all 3 of the male family members' name. And if we fill this chart out and hit Add Case Manager, all 3 of them will get this form filled out automatically in their accounts. But because Jane and Judy don't have a check mark by their name, it won't fill out for them. So you want to make sure that everyone has a check mark by their name. The easiest way to do this is by clicking on the household itself, household number 13, 2-parent family. We click on it, there's a check mark there, and it pre-populates all the members of the family with a check mark. If you're only doing individuals, you don't have to worry about this step, but for families, this can save you a lot of time. Now, let's fill out the Case Manager tab. See how we have all these fields here? Name, title, phone number, email address, provider, start date, and end date. All you have to do, and this is so simple and a lot of people don't realize it, click the Me button. It will pre-populate with all of your information. So where does this information come from? How does it know my name, title, phone number, and email address? How's it going Big Brother on me? Well, the answer is when you filled out your HMIS user agreement back when you got your account, you provided all this information to us. And when we made your account, we filled it in. So when you click the Me button, it's already got this information in the system. You don't have to type it out. You don't have to worry about making typos in your email if you've got an extremely long one. You don't have to worry about typos in your phone number, your title, any of that. You just click the Me button and you're good to go. Now what you have to do is choose your provider. You click the search button and pick a different provider if the one that doesn't show up is correct. We always want to make sure that we get the provider correct. So if you have multiple programs at your agency, say Rapid Rehousing HUD, Rapid Rehousing Singles HUD, Rapid Rehousing HSP, and Rapid Rehousing Singles HSP, like 4 different programs, make sure you code them as the right one. Because if you're doing, say, singles outreach, you don't want to accidentally code them as HIP families. So make sure that you pick your correct provider here. And you would do that by picking your search button. And let's do HSP family. There we go. We can see Rapid Housing HSP family. And the reason I'm only choosing that is because the entry for this test client is an HSP family. And I just want to be, keeping things the same. Start date This should be the date that you started working with the case or with the client as the case manager. So this is not today's date. This is not necessarily the date they joined the program. This is the date that you, the case manager, in this case myself, Alexander Lucard, started working with the family. So let's say 10/01/2018. We don't fill out the end date. We only fill out the end date once we stop working with the client. Now we hit add case manager and we're done. That's all there is to it. So if someone from the county or the Veterans Association or something like that is looking for the client and they have HMIS access, they can go in and go, hey, Alex here is the case manager. There's his phone number. Let's give him a call and say, hey, we need to get this SSI check to him, but we don't think we have the right address. So let's ask the case manager for help. You know, something like that. And this will also let us see a person's caseload, because if you run a report on current case managers, you'd be able to go say, oh, Alex has 62 clients. That's a bit big. Maybe we should give some of his clients to someone else so he has a little less work to do. Something like that. Or maybe they see this as my only client and they're like, Alex, what are you doing? You only have one client in the system. So it's very important for a lot of reports that you fill out this case manager tab. But the most important reason we fill this out is when you're doing your case notes under the case plan. Let's take a quick look. This is not a training on case notes, that is a separate training, but as long as we're in here talking about the importance of case managers, I want you to be able to see this. We click on case plans and add goal, and we start to do family notes. Here I am as the case manager. See that? Alex Lucard is choosable as a case manager. And if I don't do that, let's delete myself as a case manager quick. If I'm not set up under the case managers tab, I'm not going to show up as the case manager. Do you see that? So you have to set yourself up as a case manager for the case managers tab to work properly. You need to have a case manager in there, or reports based on the notes will not load correctly. So always set yourself up as a case manager, especially if you are a program that is doing case plans / case notes in HMIS. So let's bring me back. This is only going to take a few seconds to do. Right? And this time I'm only going to do me because I just deleted him, but I didn't delete it from the rest of the family. So again, we're only doing the George because I just deleted him for the purpose of showing you the case plans. So the other 4 have him in there. You still have to delete everything back. Let's go back. Now, let's say that I stop working with George. Now, there's a lot of reasons this can happen. Maybe I leave the agency. Maybe I change jobs within the agency. Maybe George leaves the program or dies. Maybe George and I just don't get along and we find it better that he has a different case manager. You know, there's lots of reasons why a case manager and a client stop working together. But once that happens, we need to put an end date in here. We need to signify that this is no longer the active case manager for the client. And too often what you'll see in HMIS is like 4 or 5 active case managers on a client, some of which haven't worked with the client for years. It's just no one put the end date in, and that's really bad. Because if you try looking for the client and you see 4 or 5 open case managers without an end date, you don't know which is the right one to contact, and it could be a life or death situation. So you have to put an end date in. If you know you're going to stop working with the client, you have to put the end date in. If you are terminated or leave the agency and you forget, that agency is still responsible and will be held accountable for not putting the end date in. So if you are working with, say, Everymind, and you see an Everymind case manager that you've never seen that name before, and that start date was like 2008, double check and get an end date and put it in the system. We only want active case managers in there, so everyone else needs to have an end date. So let's show you how to do the end date. It's super simple. We click on the pencil and we put a date for when you stop working with the client. That's it. Save. And you can see my history of working with George Jetson was from October 1st, 2018 to May 25th, 2021. And that's all there is to it. That's all you have to do to exit yourself out as the active case manager for your client. And that's all we have for the training today. What we've done is we've shown you how to set yourself up as a case manager, whether it's a singles or a household program, why we do the case managers tab, especially if you do case notes, and also how to exit a no longer active case manager in the system. Remember, you don't want to delete yourself. You don't want to hit the clash button because that will delete your entire history of working with the client. You just want to put the end date in. The only time you're going to put a trash can in is if you accidentally put yourself as a case manager for the wrong client. Maybe there's 2 people named George Jetson and you put yourself in on the wrong one, or you accidentally put yourself into it. Those would be the only times you use the trash can. Other than that, that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for joining me for this training. I hope it made sense. Again, Case Manager tab is so simple to do. You see, you just click that Me button and put in a start date, double check your provider, and that's all you have to do. But we have to make sure you do it. And more importantly, we have to make sure you get closed out when you're no longer working with the client. Again, thank you for joining me today. I hope this training was informative, and I look forward to doing more with you in the future. You have a great day.